Welcome to the Liz McMullen Show. I have Catherine Lane. This is her very first interview, so be kind. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz.
So, your first book is called The Joy of Cooking. No, it isn't. I'm just messing with you. My first question is, the set piece is your debut novel. And my first question is, are you a jock?
I think, well, if I look at myself with other people's eyes, I could say, yes, I am a jock. Okay. Or I was a jock. You know, I'm older now. And so I think sometimes that leaves you very quickly. But I grew up playing soccer. I played on the first club team to ever come out of California. I went off to college and played a little bit there. But I have to say that Amy in the book and the set piece is a much better soccer player than I ever was. You know, how you like to make your, to create a fantasy world. Well, Amy is my fantasy world. That's the player I like to have been if I could have been.
Yeah, my entire family, at least the immediate, were not only jocks, they were uber jocks. Like my brother was on the dream team for like football and helped score the winning game and the All-States, and the first time they won in like 48 years, and I was so not that jock. I was a workhorse, so to speak. I was a swimmer, and I ended up being captain, but mostly because there weren't that many people from my year that survived, that stuck around. But I worked hard, I had the right attitude, and I enjoyed it, but I was not the greatest swimmer that ever was. I could never manage butterfly. But I had heart, like Rudy. I was definitely Rudy. That was me. And I was a rugger too. I played rugby for a season and a half in college, which was really cool. It's very empowering because women aren't generally in environments where they can see themselves exercising strength and dominance in that way. And so that was exciting for me because I was bullied a lot when I was growing up, and I didn't...
Sorry.
Yeah, I was a wuss too. Like I'm not one of those ones with Moxie who stood up for herself. I was just like, oh! And so it was so glorifying. Like there was this girl on my team, and she's not nice to me. And she was intimidating to most people. And she's big, but I was tall. and we were having tackle practice, and oh my God, I got her so good. It was so poetic. When you tackle somebody properly with really good form, you barely feel it. It's like dipping somebody when you're dancing, you just let them fall.
Sure.
And so it's like I hit her at the perfect point, and I barely felt any impact, and she fell like a sack of potatoes, and I was like, ha, 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 ha. It was terrible, and I loved it. It was wonderful.
And then you walked away with a swagger, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I was just like, ha, ha. So, like, I admire people who are really, really talented. I wish I had it. And I was reading your book, and I've read stories with soccer in it before. I don't understand soccer. But when I was reading your book, I felt like I really understood how it works. Like, if you've ever played a sport like rugby or football or soccer, lacrosse, whatever, one of the keys to kind of advancing is seeing a hole in the crowd. Like you can figure out where you can dart off to get through. And I never had that vision. I was always so hand to mouth about it. And so I was like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. That sounds really cool. And Casey is super hot.
Well, it's called playing off the ball, right? I think that, I tried to, take the sports metaphors and just sort of turn them into life lessons, like the idea of the set piece and, how you practice and practice and practice, and then you go up to hit the set piece and something crazy will happen. Like the ball will hit the top of the goalpost, or somebody will jump in front of the ball. And all of a sudden you're playing a practice set piece in a way that nobody ever saw it, how it would turn out. And I sort of like that metaphor for the book, that, Amy goes into this idea, she goes into this new lifestyle, and she thinks she's playing in a set piece, and then Casey comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden the set piece has gone all to hell, and she's got to work her way through the game. She's got to play off the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really poetic. I don't know what the hell you just said. Because I don't know what the set piece, well, as a jock, I've never known what that meant. But
all it is that you have a coach, and he has a little board, and he creates the X's and O's on the board. And you stand here, and the ball's going to go here. When the ball shows up there, you put the head on the ball, and it goes in the back of the net. So it's just a practice play.
Okay. Do you know what's so funny? When I was in the rugby team, we did drills all the time, but not really scrimmaging. And so I almost didn't really understand the full structure of the game. I only knew it like broken down into things that you need to condition for. And I was just like, this is really weird. It was very, most exhausting thing. Does soccer have continuous play?
It does, but if you kick a ball out of bounds, then you have to go and collect it and do a throw-in. Or, if like a foul happens, they stop the game. So it's not quite continuous play, but it's close.
It's close. Because rugby's kind of like a hybrid between football and soccer.
Right.
And so it's a similar thing, and it's extremely exhausting. Because in football, they reset up all the time. In rugby,
as often as a defense.
And it's just like you two set up against each other and you start again. And then you start again. And then you start again. But in rugby, you're going and going and going and going.
That's what's kind of cool about the set piece, is that's when the game stops and you have a moment to sort of look at the entire field and assess the game. Mm-hmm. Where before you're just sort of playing on instinct. And, I do really like that metaphor.
The setup of the book is that Amy is going to be the beard for a professional athlete who's a gay guy, and she has to play his fiance. And the personal assistant to the stud is this really hot babe. And in the beginning, it's kind of set up like, oh my God, I'm taking over her place, and they were in love with each other or something like that. And so this is, it's a very dangerous game to get into all those lies. And like, she didn't know any of the players ahead of time, but then you see that they're real people that they're both lying to and creating this world to basically, now I was like, let's let Liz blank. What's his name? Diego. Okay, so Diego is not just keeping up a facade because he wants to keep his lifestyle for him. He wants to keep up his lifestyle so he can support his family, and not in the sense of his kids and wife thing, but his actual entire family who grew up in poverty. And those are really high stakes.
They are incredibly high stakes. And I think that for men, and especially, Latino men, and certainly the Mexican-American culture, it doesn't look at being gay as a wonderful thing. And so obviously he's got to fight that. And I also think that somewhere along the line, he sort of lost the love of the game. And I think that sort of, connecting up with Amy and Casey, it sort of brings him back into the game a little bit, which I think, we all should be.
Yeah, the Latino culture, it's very tough. I think it's like shoulder and shoulder with either men from Africa or the Caribbean. There's a lot of homophobia, and patito is, slang for gay. For gay. It was so funny when I was reading your book and I was translating what she was saying, because the first meeting with his mother. Yeah, abuelita, but because I'm married into a Puerto Rican family, and so we call the older woman vieja, and it's actually not a diss to call somebody old woman. So, I was like, oh my God, la vieja, I know why she's having her vuelta. She's assessing her childbirthing hips. I'm like, oh, shit.
Well, I'm glad that moment played for you.
Oh, it totally worked for me. I was just like, holy crap, you're so screwed. You're so screwed. But it's fun. Other than this book, do you think Spanish will pop up in other books that you write?
Well, I did a short story where one of the main characters, one of the girls, was Latina.
Uh-huh.
I love exploring other cultures. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's in that book. It's in that short story as well. But I don't know. The one that I'm writing right now doesn't have a Latina or bent, but you never know. I like it. So hopefully I'll revisit it someday.
I'm going to non sequitur pop in a question from our listening audience. Karen Cormelink wanted to know, were you, obviously we answered this, but were you a soccer player? You seem to capture the homophobia in professional sports. Do you think this is why we don't have more openly gay male athletes?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really hard to come out as a, probably it's harder to come out as a male athlete than it is as a female athlete. I mean, lately we've had some really wonderful women who have come out and become role models for female athletes. But I think for men, it's a whole different story. And I'm not sure why there is that sort of,
there's this investment in the masculinity.
Absolutely. I think it's the machismo as well. But I also think it's the idea that people will not, I think that sports are obviously driven by the fans and they're driven by the endorsements. And if the fans or the, like the Nikes or the Levi's or whoever won't pay to see you on the screen, then what's the point of actually playing the game? And of course, obviously it's very different than that. I mean, I think that you should play for the love of the game, but I would imagine that professional athletes aren't really playing for the love of the game anymore. I think it's an interesting position to put really, really good athletes in.
I think that when we're young and idealistic and looking up to the jocks that we admire and their ability and prowess, we see it one way. And then we realize that we're all adults eventually, and work is not always fun. And what you kind of get it with Diego is he's not as obnoxious as, like, I don't know if it was his publicist or whatever the hell that jerk was. And he's just, smarmy. Is that it's very much about marketing yourself. It's very much about saying, it's almost like saying a script of what's expected of you and, positioning yourself and figuring out, how to work that environment. And that's their job. I mean, it's not like they don't love the sport and they're not grateful that their athletic abilities put them in that position, but it's so much more than that. And I think when it comes to the guys, there's this investment in hypermasculinity and the assumption that, I don't know any gay people, or I've never played football with any gay people, or I've never this, that, and the other thing. And for a lot of guys, they have to be on the down low. And with women, there's like this other thing where they're like, they want you to be a good jock, but they want you to still be feminine somehow. Like trying to make, not that Serena Williams is not a goddess, and like a piece of amazing sculpture that does awesome things, but it's like they're trying to be pretty too, like Ronda Rousey. She's beautiful and blonde, and it's like sometimes even with the tennis women, they were more interested in the beautiful blonde one than the best jock. And if you seem masculine or if you seem dykey, then you're punished. So there's still that going on too.
Absolutely. And I think absolutely. And I think it also translates to the male athletes, that if you are not sort of the stereotypical, really handsome jock, then what are you doing in this sport? So I think that's interesting as well.
I think sport is the one place that it is so visibly misogynistic and very binary gender-wise. Like a man's man, you've got to, be masculine. And even though that babe of a football player came out and had that cute little kiss with his boyfriend, he still hurt his career by doing that.
Absolutely. And, I think that, I don't know if you watched the World Cup, but at the end of the World Cup, when, Abby Wambach went over and kissed her wife, they had that moment where the camera focused on them and then it just like quickly moved away. I mean, and they gave us the moment, but, they were sort of saying, all right, we'll just tease you with it. But here's the real celebration, where the girls were jumping up and down and doing all that, running around with their new T-shirts. And I'm just like, okay, it could work both ways.
And pan over to the pretty ones.
Yes, exactly.
And don't even start about how like they win and they earn like a fifth or a tenth or like 5 cents on the dollar of what the male athletes do when they lose.
Well, absolutely. That's a whole different, FIFA, we could just go into how, horrible FIFA is right now, but yes, absolutely.
So, there's a lot going on. I think that, one thing that I wanted to remark about your book is that it really does not read like a debut novel, and it's very engaging and definitely a unique spin. But I found myself riveted, and it's tough because I read a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's like slogging through Drek. It's very much labor because you want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. You want to read enough into theirs to just not say, oh, you don't have me in the first few paragraphs. I don't love you. I'm putting your book down. But I like when I don't have to force myself into it. And like your book and, most recently I had Carson on, and she's just gotten so fantastic. And I've watched her career. I read her entire catalog before I interviewed her first in the cocktail hour. So I actually I've been able to see her from her first book to her present. And she's just, she's in a class. She's definitely something to aspire to if you're a writer.
Absolutely, yes.
So, let's see. Pam, okay, people challenge me. Osteransky asks, would you mind asking Catherine Lane a question for me? When did she first realize she wanted to be a writer, and why?
Oh. Well, I think I've always wanted to be a writer. When I was a kid, I remember trying to fall asleep at night and not being able to, and just sort of composing the same novel in my head over and over and over again. And when I got older, I realized that I had never sort of put that down on paper, and I had to kind of think about why. And I think that mostly I was afraid. I think I was afraid that it wasn't going to be good, and people weren't going to, like it. And that fear really blocked me. And then I wrote coverage for a major motion studio, which means basically agents send in their scripts hoping that the studio will buy it and make it. And the ironic thing is they hand it off to these people like me, these like peons who don't know anything, to read and basically make the decision. So we would create a synopsis, and then we would have this other section where you would identify the potential issues of the script, and then you would make suggestions, or you would just sort of say, this is a way you could go, or this is a way you could go. And I think I kind of began to realize that nobody writes a great draft the first time out of the gate, that there's always revision and there's always reimagining. And suddenly I realized, hey, you know what? You can put down a really horrible, drecky first draft and just run with it. So I think that once I realized that, and my wife gave me a really big kick in the butt, I was off to the races. So, I wrote a really, really bad first novel that nobody has ever seen. So it is still sitting on my hard drive. So we'll see if I get the gumption to actually turn that into something someday.
Alex Dimino has a question for you, and she wanted to know, what do you do when you're not writing?
Well, I could give you the sophisticated answer, and I could tell you that I read classics, or I experiment in the kitchen.
Or you're smart and shit?
Yeah, sometimes I'm smart and shit. But, we have a whole bunch of kayaks in the garage that I never take out. But you know what? The thing that I'm doing right now is I'm binge watching Jessica Jones. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Oh my God, you have to watch it. It is so good.
You're like, I love it.
Secret, Liz.
That's your big secret's out, man. Oh man.
It is.
Yeah, I'll admit I did binge watch Once Upon a Time.
Oh yeah. Well, you should give Jessica Jones a shot, because it's the supervising producer is the same woman who did Xena Warrior Princess. And I know not everybody's into it, but I love that show. And there are so many similarities between that show and Jessica Jones. It's really interesting.
Oh, you just made a lot of lesbians' toes curl. Oh! See,
and what's better is like the really covert undertone of lesbianism in Xena is just right out there in the open in Jessica Jones.
Well,
so she's pretty good.
I think they'll very much so appreciate you, Catherine. One thing that I want to talk about before we bring our time to a close, I know, don't cry, is that you had some really positive support from lesbian writers in our community that kind of brought you to the point where you are today. You have 2 anthologies with a short story in it, and you have obviously your debut novel out. So would you like to talk a little bit about them?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, I'd be nowhere without it. I mean, I applied to the Golden Crown Mentoring Society, the Golden Crown Literary Society and their mentoring program, and was happily accepted. And they threw me over to, do I say the names?
Yeah, you can say like their pen names.
All right. So they threw me over to Jay, and I don't know how it happened, but I'm sure the angels were looking down on me on that day, because it was really one of the best things that has ever happened to my career. I mean, she is so amazing, just an incredible mentor. I mean, she, took somebody who was really inexperienced, and she taught me a lot without ever making me feel sort of insecure or inferior. And I think she, obviously she can't raise me up to her level, but she definitely raised me up to a level where, publishers were interested. And I was really happy to sign with her publisher. And then a whole new group opened up to me.
Which is Push Your
Ilva Publishing. They had a very good night last night with the Rainbow Awards. Can I throw that plug in?
Woohoo!
But yeah, so, and, certainly Astrid and all the people who run Ilva are unbelievably committed and just so generous with their time and their energy, and they really want to make something special over there, and I'm just really proud to be a part of it. And then, of course, obviously, my editor on the set piece was Jill McKnight, and honestly, I don't know what the book would have been without her. I mean, it's, obviously the structure and the story were all there, but she has an ability to sort of, tease something out of nothing. And it was an incredible learning experience for me. And I just hope that I continue to get better with every book.
Fantastic. I'm so happy it's such a positive experience and that you're coming out strong, and you're one of our awesome, like I do stuff for the GCLS, and you're one of our very happy, successful alumni of the mentoring program, and I'm glad that it took off for you. I mean, obviously, I feel like we need a label. All results are not the same, but I find the collegiality and the kindness and generosity of some of our finest writers in the lesbian fiction community. They really know how to bring a sister up and support her. And, I feel like I'm still on the steep end of the learning curve writing wise. I have 2 books. Yeah, I was like, I have 2 books out there, but I think it's probably going to take me until book 5 or so until I feel kind of like I know what I'm doing, and just keep on.
They say it takes 10,000 hours, right, to become really good at something?
Oh my God, that sounds so big and intimidating. 10,000 hours? I did that on the first draft.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm thinking too.
I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing to get involved in. Your book has great characters. It's very clean, cleanly written. I don't mean that it has no adult values, because that would be misleading. But it's a good. It's not. It doesn't have that feel of a debut novel, and I applaud you for that. That's a great experience to come out of the gate with. A lot of us just have to grow, and some small presses can see the promise in an author and nurture her up. And you start out at a really great level. Don't fall on your face on your second book, honey.
Yeah, it's all first love. Don't think I don't hear that in my head all the time. I'm 3/4 of the way through with my next novel, and happily, it's already contracted to Ilva. But I don't know, sophomore slump. Oof.
I know. I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, well, don't. It's too easy to mess with me, Liz.
You're like, ow, stop. Be kind, be gentle. So it's been fantastic having you on the show. How do you feel? You got your first interview under your belt?
Well, I think I got better as I went along. So hopefully that's a metaphor for my entire career.
End scene.
It was very obvious to me that you had to plug my book for me because I can't talk about it. I am absolutely the world's worst pitcher.
Well,
I can't my way out of the paper box.
Well, so at least you got good product. There's nothing worse than having a shitty book that's really well promoted. So you got some good product there. If the learning curve is in self-aggrandizement and whatnot, I think that you can work on a lack of humility if you really try.
Well, yes. Let's hope so. I guess. I don't know. Do I only want that?